Hello, John Hanks here, principal of Pleasant Grove High School. A few months ago, the mayor and a few members of the city council came and talked with us here at the high school about their plans to restore the G up on the mountain. And we had some students in there and we brainstormed some ideas of how we could communicate that to students and involve the school in that process.
I have been one of the student members on the committee of restoring the G.
And I think it's just super cool that I get to put my mark on Pleasant Grove by rebuilding the G, and it won't be forgotten for a very long time.
Like the G itself, because I think it just represents everything we stand for. I think I'm making all of my Pleasant Grove ancestors proud.
I'm Dr. E. Mark Besant. I was born and raised here in Pleasant Grove. I graduated from Pleasant Grove High School in 1967. As we were getting ready to graduate, and in the spring every year they'd go up and whitewash the G. And unfortunately, the actual physical block G had deteriorated, and they'd use, at that particular time, we used flares.
I used to be Cheryl Besant, now I'm Cheryl Wilson, and I was a 1978 graduate. 78 is great. I was really involved in high school, and my senior year I was on student council. And so we had the opportunity, we were in charge of lighting the G, and we would hike up and we would pass out 2 flares to each student. And we would get up there and we would line the G. And can you imagine nowadays with kids with 2 flares lighting the G? Yeah, that would not fly.
I read a little of the history of the G. That led me to look into some of the old yearbooks back from the 1920s, 1930s, and was fascinated and really quite an experience to see what life was like for our students here at our school back then, and then the involvement that they had with the G over the years. That story began in 1920. The principal, David Gorley of the school, needed to relocate the school to a building that was large enough for all the students. As part of that, he gathered the student body together and asked them if they would rather have a G on the school or a G on the mountain. And the students unanimously voted that they would want to have a G up on the mountain.
Question, would you rather have a G on the mountain or on your school?
On the mountain, probably. Probably on the mountain.
The mayor of Pleasant Grove at that time was Junius Hayes, and he was also a math teacher and a professional surveyor. And so he took on the task of taking some students and finding an appropriate place for the G up on the mountain.
First they went up to the canal up there and looked up on the G and mountain, or what we call G Mountain, but it was Little Mountain, and decided exactly where they'd kind of put it above that first tier of steep hills going up, and that they'd put it, that would be a good location for it. The principal had all the kids, the boys out of school that were doing well in school to go out. They'd set the date to go up there, and I think it was May 10th, 1920, went up there, and the kids were taking pack animals up and stuff up there. And they said, when we interviewed the people that had actually been there, they said it was just like a swarm of kids all over the mountain, and they were gathering rocks from the Grove Creek side, they were gathering rocks from the Battle Creek side, putting it inside of where they had surveyed it. And the springs usually would wait till the springs started running just above the G. And we'd get the water from there to mix with the lime and then slop it with brooms and stuff over the rocks. And once they got this all done and whitewashed, that they ran down the mountain and went on the canal banks to look up at the beautiful job that they'd done up there to see this block G.
And then in 1960, 40 years after the original building of the G, the G ran into some problems.
Lynn, he's my brother, and he was student body president, and I was senior class president.
There had been no whitewashing of the G for several years. That wasn't looking good. Plus, it was a tradition that every spring there'd be a senior slough day, and everybody would take off, but to justify it, they'd go up and whitewash the G.
Forest Service was concerned that there was not one general organization that had ownership over the G. So in 1960, the principal of the school, Grant Ingersoll, gathered together a group of the senior class and student body officers to have a discussion on what to do.
And we planned a slough day to whitewash the G, and Grant Ingersoll, the acting principal, because A.J. Rogers had passed away, he says, you know, you can't do that. He says, it's up on the hill. That mountain's controlled by the U.S. Forest Service. He said, well, let's have a meeting. And we met in the small auditorium of the high school. And I'm speaking. I said, hey, class, we don't have permission to be up on the mountain. There's no authority for us to be there. We can't go up and take care of the G. It looks terrible. Let's get permission to go up and take the G off the mountain because we don't want it to look like that. Well, the class just erupted. No, you can't do that. That's the G.
The student body president was Lynn Southam, and the outcome of that meeting was to commit to restoring the G.
So the class was dismissed, and everybody was kind of stirred up. I immediately went down to the U.S. Forest Service.
We talked to the Forest Service, and they said that any group could sign the contract. So we got a hold of the president of the Junior Chamber of Commerce, and he signed it.
As we were busy calling everybody, I called Grant Ingersoll, and I said, Mr. Ingersoll, we got permission. The form's been signed. It's been given to the Forest Service. We're not coming to school tomorrow.
The next upgrades to the G came in the principal, John Gorley, who was the son of Principal Gorley when the G was built, noticed some needs for some more upgrades on the G. So plans this time were to bring more cement up and to place the aluminum that we see up now on the G in order to restore that a little bit.
Now Les probably told you what they did. His business partner was Dale Warburton, and they went up there and they put down that wire mesh.
The person that did that was Dale Warburton.
Well, it all stemmed from a phone call from Boyd Fugel. He represented the Key Club at the high school, and he represented the Kiwanis Club here in Pleasant Grove. We decided to try to lay the pig wire first, and then the kids, when they got up there, they would have to take that coil and cut it off the master coil and weave it through the pig wire. They took it up and down vertically. So I think it turned out better than we ever expected.
So this time, instead of the boys running the cement up the side of the mountain, they actually had helicopters.
I was happy with the outcome of it. And I was happy because it allowed so many students to be a part of it, and they had to work really hard up there that day. It was not an easy task. It was tedious. By the time you would weave that coil through every one of those little squares in that pig wire, you know, you had a job on your hands. You had to go from the top down to the bottom.
Also at this time, the Kiwanis Club and their Key Club organized a way to have electricity up there.
But anyway, on that first night when we got all the lights strung out, we went up there in the day, got it all set up, and we pulled that generator up. We did it Roman style. We hooked a big rope on the front of this thing. So we had about 6 or 8 guys up ahead pulling and 2 guys stabilizing it so it wouldn't roll off the mountain. And I gotta tell you, it was the most beautiful sight to be up there with all of these kids that went up to help us and that had helped with the restoration efforts that year.
The G has always been kind of our showpiece of Pleasant Grove. But now we find that we need to update it. Restoring the G does not come without a cost. We appeal to those who want to be part of it and can financially support us. We'd appreciate that.
It was put up there in the first place by seniors who they were coming out of the Spanish flu pandemic.
Well, what the G means to me is that it shows our civic pride and that we're all together, and it's a symbol of not our high school, but our community.
The G has been the symbol of our community for so many years. I can't imagine it ever going away. It's just such a sense of pride.
There were 35 students in the class of 1920, only 35 kids. 4 of them were still living in 1979 when we were writing this history, and we interviewed them. But this is what they wrote in their yearbook. It says what the G stands for, that we were green, but we have gradually grown in gratitude towards our parents and school for the grand opportunities presented to us. It signifies that we will not growl or grumble, but will become great through growth in Pleasant Grove.
We need to get that G restored and keep it there as a symbol of our community.
Whenever I'm coming home from a trip, it's just always like so fun driving like on the freeway and then seeing the G. It's like, this is home, this is home.
The G's a really cool symbol for the community, for the school, and I think a lot of people use it as a way to kind of signal that you're home.
And I always took the students when we were done, we'd hike down from the G and there's a little outcropping where you can see the whole valley, and I get the students out there, we'd sing the school fight song, and it was such an honor to be a part of that.
It just, for years, it's just shown how awesome Pleasant Grove is. And so if you want to be a part of that and show how cool we really are, get involved and let's restore that G.
I really think that G represents the history of Pleasant Grove. And we just don't want to forget.
It means so much to every single person that lives in PG, even if they're new or if they're old. We all look at it as something that unites us and something that brings us closer together.
As a school, we're hoping to be able to come together to not only raise money, but provide whatever service hours and opportunities there are to do our part, just like the students of previous generations.
You guys can go donate online. There's a spot on the Pleasant Grove High School webpage that you can donate, and there's some other spots. Look out on social media to ways to donate. Any donations we can get will be such a huge help to getting this giant project done, but it'll be so worth it in the long run.
That G on the mountain, that school, that small community, the brotherhood, sisterhood that we shared was really neat.
But I have to think that here in Pleasant Grove, there are many, many people that can trace their success back to Pleasant Grove High School.
Pleasant Grove High School students and community, now is our opportunity to do our part to add to the symbol of the G on the mountain. This is a great opportunity for us to do our part and make that G be something that the city can be proud of.